Hi, everybody. I've been doing some spring cleanup, digging through the archives, cleaning up the basement, and I uncovered a 1980s relic from my childhood that I'd like to share with you. And just in time for this year's 2023 NHL playoffs, I found my old 1983 sticker book. So a look back in time 40 years ago. I guess it was a prized possession because it turns out it was the only one that I ever completed. So the setup for this story is that the year before, the one there's a sticker book that came out and it had Wayne Gretzky on the cover, and that's the first one I had as a kid. And I remember being so disappointed and confused when I couldn't complete it. Training with other kids, 3-1, 2-1 trades, brute force spending quarters every day on packs of these stickers, and nothing worked for me. And I probably only got like 2/3 of it complete. So it was this year that I remember I must have said to myself, never again. I went hardcore and made sure I got all of them this time around. And honestly, all the years after that, I think I was just sort of over the experience or burned out on the stickers. So I never really went down that rabbit hole ever again. It was just this one year I was all in. But I am really pleased I found this thing again. It's still in pretty good condition for its age, I must say. And the last thing I'll mention before we look inside is what a windfall for OP Chee. Honestly, these things were insanely popular with kids, like every young boy in every small town, or maybe, well, I'm not sure if they reached far outside of Ontario. If you were the right age at that time, you'd have thousands of kids dropping quarters for packs of stickers. And if you think about it, adjusted for inflation, that would be more than 75 cents today. So getting up to close to $1 a pop in equivalent 1983 dollars. Can you imagine? And I even wikied OPG too. And one article I read said that their company shut down production of other products just so they could keep up with the demand for the damn sticker books. Anyway, you can see 1983 had Pete Peters on the cover because he was involved in that one record breaking season Boston had where they went, I think it was over 25 games straight without a loss. Ties were a thing back then still. And they just got a new record this year, 40 years later, most wins in a season ever. So that's kind of a coincidence. So speaking of record holders, let's see what we have inside. First page. And I was always impressed that, these books had some really interesting statistics that, young kids never really appreciated. We were just like in a mad rush to get all the stickers. But today it's really fun looking back on sort of the state of the game 40 years ago. It's such a trip. So you can, and this was always, I remember seeing Gordie Howe's record, and thinking, oh yeah, that'll never be beaten. Phil Esposito, Bobby Hall, Johnny Busick, Maurice Richard. Those were your top goal scorers in 1983. And you have Marcel Dion, Guy Lafleur, Daryl Sittler. As a flyer, Gilbert Perreault, Wayne Gretzky, Butch Goring with the leather broomball helmet. Of course, when I was a kid, it was bossy. Like, this is a time where you're right at the tail end of the Islanders dynasty. And Gretzky, for sure, he was just sort of storming up the ranks, becoming more and more popular. But at this point, I don't think the Oilers had won a Stanley Cup yet. So this is what the Stanley Cup Finals looked like. Yeah, the Oilers got swept that year. It looks like 2-0 Islanders, 6-3, 5-1, and 4-2. Yeah, Islanders with a big sweep. Billy Smith. We always thought he was a dirty player. There's the Stanley Cup. You can see the three-piece combo. foil sticker, and then the vignette there of Billy Smith. That's a pretty cool presentation there. I remember Rick Middleton. Like if you played, it was a old computer game from 1988. I think Bethesda, Wayne Gretzky's hockey. You could play some of the old Boston teams, and Rick Middleton was. You would get a lot of goals with him. So he would have been an older guy, I guess, in '83. And then it's interesting. It starts with the Maple Leafs here, the truly the dark ages for the franchise. And I'll just sort of comment on the players that I remember as a kid and the ones that you would sort of pick up in paper and pencil hockey pools. And honestly, I don't have very many memories of Rick Five as a player, honestly. The other names I recognize. But you can tell just by looking at this team and the names, like they just were not championship sort of caliber. I remember Miroslav Richer, Paul Matier, Gaston Gingras. Salming was a good defenseman. Remember Peter Inachek, John Anderson, and that's it. Dan Daou. I remember he was sort of a hard-working player, but Billy Harris, no memory of that guy at all. Don't know who he is. Derlego, even remember him. Don't really remember Rick St. Croix playing in that. But there you go. That was the Maple Leafs. It's just sort of like one of the more forgettable lineups, I would think. And then you had Boston. Pete Peters. Krushelnyski was a guy you would take. He was sort of an underrated, underappreciated player. Rick Middleton there. Don't really remember Mike O'Connell. Remember Peter McNabb. I didn't realize he was a big guy, 6'3". That's about as big as players got back then. I don't think there's too many bigger guys than him. Marty Howe, Keith Crowder, Park, and Ray Bourque has number 7 before 77. That's a funny picture. But you could see even by 83, the guys who didn't wear helmets, they were sort of disappearing. They immediately became restricted to this bigger, slower moving defenseman. But, you still had holdouts too, like Lafleur, the Canadians here. Larry Robinson, if you watch tape on him, he was a big dude. He usually was the biggest guy on the ice at any given time. Add a couple of inches too for the poofy hair he usually had. Steve Shutt, a lot of people forget about him, but he was a huge goal scorer. Wickenheiser. Some people say he was the worst draft pick of all time. Pierre Mondu, Mario Tremblay. Don't remember Ryan Walter at all. Remember Napier, Gainey, of course. The captain, yeah. Rick Wamsley, Naslin, Gilbert Delorme. So there's your Montreal Canadiens. You have the Islanders. So these were the best guys for their time. And you could tell, like, the names. They had a really good team, actually. You had Nystrom. Clark Gillies was a big dude. Trottier, Tonelli. I don't remember Dave Langevin. Denny Potvin, obviously, he's a great player. Don't remember Bob Bourne. Bossy. Like, that's the lineup right there. That was the Stanley Cup winning lineup for a couple, at least a few years, right there. They played great together, the Islanders. Then we have Gretzky, 165 pounds, Brantford, Ontario. The Jofa helmet. Don't really remember Lidstrom. Glenn Anderson, of course. Kevin Lowe. Ken Linsman. Yari Curry. Don't remember Tom Ralston. Charlie Huddy, the defenseman. Messier, of course. Paul Coffey. So they had a good team there. One of the top 4 teams right there. And the Chicago Blackhawks only get 1 page. It's some pretty damn good players, though. Denny Savard. He was a first round pick in any hockey pool back then. He always scored a ton of points for Chicago. Larmer was a good player. Wilson, the big defenseman. Bannerman, he had the Jason style hockey mask painted up as an Indian face, although you don't get to see him wear it there. Al Secord was good. Tom Lysiak was really good. A lot of people forget about him these days. I don't really remember Bob Murray. But these guys were pretty darn good. In their division anyway. And you had the North Stars. These guys, I always used to like watching these guys play. They were a tough team. And they're one of the few defunct teams that I kind of miss. Some good players. Broughton. I remember when this guy, he was sort of local to where I was growing up. Or at least maybe there was people locally who knew him well, and they thought Steve Payne was going to be the next Wayne Gretzky. But they still had good players. Bobby Smith was good. Hartsburg. Don't remember Gordy Roberts. Dino Ciccarelli. It's some good players, the North Stars. I miss that team. St. Louis Blues. Don't remember Jorgen Peterson. Federico. Yeah, Federico you would pick in a hockey pool for sure. Got a lot of points. Rob Ramage. There's Brian Sutter. Mike Liut. Old style hockey mask. Don't remember Blake Dunlop. And then there were Detroit Red Wings. Man, this was pre-Yzerman, so this was not a good team sort of in the grand history of Detroit. I don't think. I don't really remember these guys at all. Jim Schoenfeld obviously became a coach. Oh, Grodnick. He was actually, you would take a Grodnick in a pool if you wanted a Detroit player for sure. He was the best they had. Not a bad player, actually. Most people nowadays would sort of forget about that name there. But he was actually the one guy you would take off the Red Wings in a hockey pool. Stars of the future. This is always funny. Sure, it doesn't age well. Ed Beers, never heard of him. Brian Bellows was okay. Don't know about that guy. Randy Gregg was a good defenseman. These other guys were busts, mainly. Sundstrom was a good player. And the Leafs players, not so much. This is a cool page. It had detailed information about how the Campbell Conference final went. You can see the Oilers looks like, yeah, they swept the Blackhawks that year. Some action. Al Secord. That was cool. This is a cool spread too, the All-Star game. That looked really cool. I really like how that was presented. Al Secord, Gretzky. Does it say who won? I'm going to guess. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Doug Wilson, bearing him in there. There's his Indian mask. Dave Babbage. Yeah, you got Denny Potvin. Mark Howe. A couple of the Stastny brothers. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. And then the Wales Conference Championship information looked like a closer series. It went 6 games. And Islanders won the first game. Bruins took the second. Islanders third. Fourth. Bruins came back there, but then the Islanders closed it out. And there's some of the action. Bork with a mustache. Looks like Park there. Oh, more Stars of the Future. Let's see how it aged. Guy Carbonneau. Wow. He was good. Let's see. Don't know about Jeff Larmer. Kluzak played for a while. Wow. Never heard of that guy. Scott Stevens, obviously. He's probably the best of the lot here. Yep. The Flyers with the Cooperalls. Daryl Sittler. McCrimmon. Oh, there's Lindbergh. He only lived probably a couple years after this picture was taken. It's interesting, you can see his goalie mask in the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, Ontario. It's sort of on the bottom level of like this wall display. And I looked at it carefully. And the remarkable thing about it is, I think it was this side here, like right around one of the eye cutouts, had like all this like damage where it looked like he may have sort of taken a stick or a puck, and it was all cracked up and sort of patched right on the edge of the eye. So thinking, I mean, at some point he may have, that mask would have saved him from being blinded by something. Anyway, it's remarkable because it has like the angry eyebrows molded into it. A really interesting piece to see in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So you have Washington here. Langway was a big defenseman. He was, remind me of Robinson, the helmetless guy with big poofy hair. Same size, big dude. Gartner, a great player. Jarvis was good too. Yeah, I don't know why Denny Marouk would have got the 2-piece over Gartner, because Gartner was by far the better player. The Rangers. Barry Beck. Dave and Don Maloney. Yeah, these guys weren't very good, honestly, as a team back then. The Devils, these were the reskinned Colorado Rockies, I guess. They were a weak team. Quenneville, I recognize as a future coach. Yeah, these guys weren't that memorable. Cool layout, though. The Penguins, Randy Carlyle. Michel Dion. His mask was probably one of the best ones left in the NHL at that time. But it was hard. It was hard being a Pittsburgh Penguins fan back in the day. You could see they just didn't have a lot of big names on that team. Buffalo had some good players. They had Foligno, Phil Housley. Gilbert Perreault was a great player. You'd pick him in any hockey pool. Don't really remember John Van Boxmeer. Nordiques is another defunct franchise that I really miss. I loved watching Nordiques Canadiens matchups. There's always just crazy action, and they were usually rough and tumble games. And they this team featured the three brothers, Stastny brothers. There, that was sort of memorable. Peter was the best one. Anton and Marion. Goulet was a great player. I remember Randy Moeller. He was part of. He played a part in that. What was it? The Good Friday Massacre. They called it, between Montreal and the Nordiques. It was like two bench clearing brawls. And I remember Moeller had like this bloody face throughout the whole sort of incident, and it just caused havoc. It was one of the biggest fights ever in NHL history. And then you had the Whalers, the other team that had the Cooperalls for 1 or 2 seasons. This was probably my least favorite team ever. It was just so hard to get behind this team, honestly. They rarely won games. Hard to watch, too, because not all games were televised back then. And if they played, well, it was just hard to watch them. They didn't get on TV very often when I was a kid, that's for sure. Ron Francis by far was their best player. These other guys I don't even remember at all, honestly. Blaine Stoughton, okay. Greg Millen became a broadcaster. Flames. Hey, they're wearing their practice. There's some of them practice uniforms here. Kent Nielsen was good. Remember him. Overall, though, they were a pretty weak team. Canucks with the iconic V shirts. I remember this team versus Toronto was one that I saw live back in the day at the old Maple Leaf Gardens as a kid. And I remember the game ended in a 5-5 tie, and there was a big fight at the end. But the Canucks were wearing this, was it the orange one or the black one? They may have had their orange ones on shirts. Oops. I didn't know John Garrett was from Trenton. That's really close to where I grew up. I don't remember him playing in net, though, often. It was mainly Brodeur when I saw them play. Old school Winnipeg Jets, you had Dale Hawerchuk was a great player. Uh, Steen was pretty good. I remember him. Those are the two guys I would take in a hockey pool back then. The other guys, not so much. LA, the old style uniform. His team wasn't very good, but Bernie Nichols was good for sure. And they had Marcel Dion. He was getting up there in age, I think, by this time. He definitely scored a lot of points over his career, though. Larry Murphy. Huh. Oh, and then we have the trophy winners. Gretzky won the Hart. Steve Larmer, all right. Yeah, he was good on the Calder. Rod Langway was a good defenseman, so he won the Norris. Yeah, Pete Peters won the Vezina that year. Gretzky with Art Ross, 196 points. Wow. And Bossy, the Lady Byng. That was a cool presentation, too, there. I like how they sort of concluded with record breakers, too, at the end. That's a nice touch. So what were some of them? Bossy became the first player in NHL history to score 15 or more goals in each of his first. Wow. Okay. What about Dion? He scored 100 or more points in 7 consecutive seasons. Wow. Pat Hughes. Who's that guy? Set NHL record for the fastest shorthanded goals by scoring twice within 25 seconds. Interesting. That's kind of obscure. And Wayne Gretzky, take your pick. 1 or more points in 30 consecutive games. Holy. And what did Rick Middleton do? 12 assists, 70 points in one series to set new NHL Stanley Cup playoff record. Oh, okay. And missing some stickers. This has always cracked me up because it makes it look so simple. And then you get to, what is it, step 5. Place the self-addressed envelope, the sheet with your sticker selection, and a check or money order for $1 in an envelope, no cash or stamps. So where's the little vignette of a 9-year-old walking into a bank, purchasing a money order without a bank account? Come on. I knew it couldn't be that easy. But anyway. And then the end back cover is pretty cool too because it's just so surprising. I mean, that's your whole league there. Just like, what, 20, 21 teams? You know, no big presence out on the West Coast yet with the Sharks or Anaheim or anything like that. Yeah. But overall, yeah, these things were great, honestly. Who knows how much money I spent trying to finish this thing off. But I'm glad I still have it. I just really wish I had that one before. Oh well. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more content coming soon.